am here with Michelle Lall. I'm so excited you are back on the Eating Me podcast because this week, well, actually, when you were here the last time, we were talking about, or you mentioned somatic, is it somatic therapy? Is that's the actual title for it?
So what I do, what I call them are somatic meditations with psychotherapy tools.
Right. And this is work for the body.
Yeah.
Right. So it's basically like a mental health component as well, right? Is that all connected or am I making this
Like
up?
how it plays into like the emotional eating sort of resolution, like when I work with clients.
Right.
So the somatic work, that's where we like get into the pattern, sort of like the emotions that are, or what's being triggered,
Right.
So we have like triggers, usually when we're emotionally eating, something triggered us. So I use them to access that trigger to go deeper into what's
Right.
really going on and get into the root. And the root is in the body. So somatically, we're looking for the root of whatever emotion was triggered. And so I have different prompts and we resource the body to really find that emotion because what's happening, I'll sort of explain. So in emotional eating, it's a coping mechanism, right? So it's when we use food to soothe ourselves from any discomfort, stress, or uncomfortable emotions. This usually happens in childhood because we weren't modeled how to be with our emotions by our caregivers, so they weren't able to like help regulate us, hold space for us to move through that discomfort, to help us understand what emotions meant, because emotions are messengers. And so when you're very young, let's say maybe under the age of 7, like we're very sensory, so our body is picking up sensations all around us that they translate into like, I did this thing that didn't feel good. Let me move away. So the emotions are kind of guiding us and telling us where we should go and shouldn't go. If someone hurts us, we feel that emotion and it's giving us information. Or someone crosses a boundary, we might feel anger. So, or trying to have autonomy when kids are going through that tantrum stage. It's like they're developing boundaries for themselves, what feels good. So emotions tell us what feels good and what doesn't feel good. I mean, there's the whole spectrum from deep sadness to like joy and bliss and all of this. And they're giving us information when we are not able to actually be with them and move through them. So they're meant to flow through us because they're information. And when they flow through us and we allow them, we can almost hear what they're saying to us. But when we're very young, if we're feeling those uncomfortable emotions, we need our parents there developmentally to hold that space for us, to allow us to move through it. But what usually happens is that parents or caregivers, they don't know how to do this. They either shame you, they belittle you, criticize you, ignore you, or you just kind of see like, no, I shouldn't be this way. Sometimes it's like children should be seen and not heard. That's like the old school way. And so it doesn't mean you don't feel emotions. It just gets trapped because there's no allowing. So there's no one there holding that space for you to feel it and move through it and learn how to understand it. And so you're feeling it and it's uncomfortable in your body. And it's not like in that moment, you're like, I'm going to go get 5 bags of chips. You're like, I'm feeling uncomfortable. What do I do with this?
Okay.
And over time, what I feel happens is that when we're very young, love and food are really connected. You're being breastfed, you're close to your parent, you're getting that love and acceptance. And in those moments where you're feeling those, uncomfortable emotions, we need that acceptance and that validation and being seen and heard and understood the most. We don't get it. Well, something's wrong with us. Okay, and I'm holding this in. And because those emotions were not processed and integrated, they remain in the body. And so then different events, they get re-triggered and we learn like we have to cope. We're not resolving it. We're not understanding it. We have to cope. So for emotional eaters like us, we go to food.
Right.
Because food physiologically, when you eat it, yes, there's a connection to love, but it also gives your body that endorphin rush, and especially processed foods are going to give you a bigger sort of like dopamine hit. And so this pattern becomes really automatic. So you don't even realize you're feeling an emotion. Your brain just says eat. So that's sometimes when you're so unconscious because it's so ingrained, this coping mechanism now.
Right.
And so you're just seeing yourself like out of control with food, out of control, maybe not even knowing where the trigger came from. You might just say, I have so much stress in my life, but it's like you can't pinpoint, right? And you're not moving through life like emotion or event by event, like your sensitivity to it is kind of lost because you're using this coping mechanism to numb it out.
Right.
And so those emotions, that whatever happened to you, those emotions become trapped because it's an unresolved event. Until there's resolution, you can't sort of release and move through it.
Mhm.
And so what the somatic meditations do, those emotions are now, because they're unresolved, you feel unresolved, it's a trauma. And so it lives in the body. Our body remembers everything. And so that takes up space in the body. And as children, I'll sort of give you a little brain science. So when we're that young, we are meant to be able to move through our emotions because it helps develop our prefrontal cortex. It's feeding information into that, maturing it.
Right.
And the prefrontal cortex is still maturing into our early 20s. And so the more we stuff emotions, the more we hold it in and told to do that, we lack that development. And so we have less logic and less sort of like that, what the prefrontal cortex is meant to do, sort of give us that rationale.
Mhm.
And so we're actually, when we're told like, don't be emotional, be more logical and rational, we're actually stunting that for ourselves by holding it in because we don't understand emotions and their role. And yeah, we're just sort of numbing out. It's taking up space in our system. And it also makes us lack empathy and compassion because we're not modeled that also. Like we're sort of
Right.
like shutting down our own emotions. And what I see with clients is that when we move through this process, when they have kids, they actually recognize how they could have been better parents. They were like in survival mode parenting, just modeling
Yes.
after their own parents, now doing it to their kids and sort of repeating the pattern. Maybe their kids have a different coping mechanism. But when I work with clients and we get into the actual root, and so I have different prompts and I try to go back as early as possible to that original event, and we're resourced, we're moving through and processing. I'm intuitively also guiding them what they need in that process to resolve it.
Right.
And then it's almost like your brain will be like, this is what I needed. Like intuitively, like internally, you'll know this is what I needed. These are the next steps for me. And that's in that clear space. And it's no longer about the food. You actually see what's really under there. So I don't know if that helps with explaining what that is, but then that's just one part of the program. That's sort of the
Right.
deeper place. Yeah.
No, that is wild. Like I was just sitting there, it's like so many things are like just popping into my head as you were saying that. And it was interesting when you brought up the whole idea of like how parents, for the most part, are in survival mode. And so even though during that time when they were probably children and they were raised in the way they were, then that then trickles down to, us being raised by the parents. I remembered when I was a kid, my parents would say stuff like, if I was upset, and it's like you said, like get over it kind of thing, or I'll give you something to be upset about, right?
Yeah.
So basically, like you're being
Yeah.
punished for having emotions.
Yeah. Right.
And that to me is like so wild because I thought that that's what you were supposed to do, like in terms of like, you shut it down. Because
Yeah.
with me growing up, a lot of times it was if I was emotional or whatever the situation was, it was like, we don't have time to be emotional.
Yeah.
We have this to do and this to do and this to do. So because literally my mom would say, get your cry out. And now we have to go and do this, this, and this. And there wasn't a time, like you said, to hold space for that child to really understand why these emotions are coming up and how we can work through them. But at the same time, I'm thinking, did my mom even have the tools? Like clearly she didn't. She didn't
Yeah.
really know that that was something that she was supposed to do. So like all that to say, like, so when that is happening in this whole somatic actual therapy, are there times where you talk through like how to like maneuver that for parents in terms of like how they can move forward in holding space for their own children? You know what I'm saying? Because I know for me, that was something that I would have never even known that you would do for a child. Like you said before, children, when I was growing up too, children were seen and not heard. And
Yeah.
and you knew that. It's like, get somewhere and sit down. Like,
Yeah. So I think what happened, it's like, yeah, most of our parents were probably in survival and they didn't have the tools and they didn't have this. And then also part of me was like, I wouldn't have known this as a child, but I would have felt like I'm very sensitive. And so that sensitivity served me later on because I was in more pain. So I needed to find solutions. And so I think when we're in survival, we're like, we don't have time for this. But the reality, like in our day and age, if we don't make the time, it becomes even more time we take because like I have an 8-year-old, I've done this with him. There are even different places that say if you actually feel through an emotion, it takes like 90 seconds. Like if you're in real time, like moving through something, it doesn't take a lot of time. It's not like we think it's maybe hours and hours and days and days. And that's because we have so much resistance. We have so much like something is wrong with us, so much judgment. And when we have that for so many years, it all builds up in our system. So when we start doing more of this work, it might feel like, oh my God, I have so much, but it's just a daily, it's like clearing, it's like taking a shower. Like
right.
it's like checking in with yourself with your emotions to understand what's going right or wrong in your day. And so I think I wasn't sure like if your question was like, what do we do now? Like as parents, like moving forward. But what happens with clients when they move through the process with me, because you're going back and I'm there guiding. So
Right.
I am holding that space. I'm modeling this. I'm sharing, like, as we go deeper, if they can't, usually I allow clients to see what their capacity is in a situation, to really see that younger part of themselves and to genuinely connect. Because I think when we're dropped in and really present, if you saw a child and you were really present, you would want to hold space for them. You would see their pain, you would understand it, you would have empathy and compassion. And so in this process, we're slowing it down so that they're not in survival mode. I'm trying to get them into a more calmer state, more of their higher self, so that they are almost like reparenting themselves. And I'm guiding them if I notice there's more of that critical voice coming out. And so it becomes really clear and apparent. And when you touch in with a child at that level, I don't think you can ever unsee that or unfeel. And your brain is so powerful, it will start flashing to you probably the moments you haven't been that way. So it's not like a cognitive, it's like almost like upgrading your system, because now you've integrated the emotion. You're like, brain is like, oh, this wasn't the right step in that moment. And you feel that deeper, the more you can feel that deeper compassion for yourself and that empathy, that's how you see it for others. You can't see it for others to that depth unless you've done that deeper work. And of course, we're all like in this journey and it's ongoing, but the more you commit to that, like I have moments where, you know, I'll yell or say something to my son, but I'm quicker to be like, oh, he only has me. I'm his rock. Like,
Right.
how can I isolate him and separate him? And I tell him that, and I always tell him, I always love you no matter what. And I go back, I explain, and we work through it. But I feel like that isolation of like, he's a little boy, he has to depend on me. How
Right.
can I separate him? How can I push him? And he doesn't have, like, he can't go out there and live on his own. He can't resource himself. Like, he's pretty good because I've taught him a lot of things, and that's what, that's to gear him up for the world, but he needs that solid connection with me and know that I'm always going to be there to hold that space. And I see that with clients. It's like having that more compassion, because we have this idealistic view of like, I want to have compassion, I want to have empathy, but when you feel it and you see it, it's like, that's how you're going to operate in the world. It's going to be more apparent. It's a felt sense. It's kind of hard to, like, I'm trying to cognitively explain it, but that's how it feels. Yeah.
Thank you for explaining it that way, because that's literally how I was thinking it through, thinking that it was more of a cognitive type of thing, as opposed to you kind of like really trying to gauge and be intuitive about that approach. And I think honestly, now that you're saying that, I think that that would be the best way to do that, because because cognitively we're thinking, okay, these are the steps, right? Now follow these steps and it's going to be a-okay, because Michelle said these are the steps and this is how this goes, right? And I think that also kind of rings true for people in general. Like we're always trying to follow these steps. And I think that is, for me at least, I don't want to throw this on everybody. Me at least, I'm finding like, as you continue to live and see things, it's like these steps that we're all following, they all don't work for everybody.
Yeah, yeah,
No? So it's like, how can then move forward with myself? But like you said, it's that inner work for ourselves, and that then, we can
yeah,
lead with compassion for others. Because I think when we have all these steps and we see other people not following the steps, or we're not following the steps, we're so critical, whether it's ourselves,
yeah,
oh, you should
yeah,
have done blah 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 blah, because that's
yeah,
me,
yeah. In terms of energy, there's masculine and feminine energy. There's structure, there's flow. We need both. Sometimes it's like, I'm so intuitive, I'm floating around town. I'm so structured, step by step, tell me the thing. It's like a combination of the two. And if we even go back to that example of the child and holding space, the parent is the structure that the child can flow. The emotions are the flow. And so now, if we didn't have that model test when we're younger, we have to create that for ourselves as adults to be functioning. We need to have that sort of flexibility. So we become the container to our flow, our emotions, what's going on, that inner child. And so when I'm working with clients and I'm holding the space, but I teach them, they have recorded meditations to now hold that space for themselves. And yes, it's like so extreme. Someone will say, like, externally, this is what you should be doing, and these are the steps, but how do they work for you? So when you take a step, what I like to do is, do you have resistance to the step? How do you feel about the step? Have you experimented with the step? Does it feel good for you? So kind of experiment. Like I have a background in biology, like in science. So it's like, it's like experiment with the step. How does it feel? And then notice what resistance is coming up for you. Is it actually like this doesn't work for you? Or is it like resistance, like I just want to do it the way I've always done it because I'm right in doing it that way? So that's where we have to look at the limiting beliefs. Is it actually your true inner knowing, like emotions, or is it a limiting belief? So in those emotions, this is where it gets a bit complex as we get older. It's almost like that voice that told us don't feel the emotions is holding the emotions captive. And so now we have these two opposing voices sometimes in our head that is like, we want to do something, but that voice comes in, which is most likely modeled after our parents and caregivers, limiting us. So now we have to go explore, is this what we consciously want for ourselves? And so when we are so in that voice of everybody outside of us knows better, which is also cultivated usually in childhood, where our parents always know best. They're not asking our opinion. They're not moving. They're not like guiding us into knowing our intuition, knowing our emotions, honoring that maybe we're more sensitive than they are, like differentiating, understanding there are differences in others, like trying to see things from a different perspective. We fall into just tell me what to do. I don't know who I am. Tell me what to do. And so we need so what I get conflicted with this because my program is a structure, but it's a flow because I'm always asking, it's a structure to tune into you, like feel into you. So you need a structure. It's almost like reparenting, I would say. Like if I really were, it's like how to be your own best mother. I mean, I don't know if people even recognize like what's going on there, but it's that structure. And actually, as like a mother, you're holding a structure for your child.
Right.
For them to flow, they're very flowy, they're developing, they don't have a structure, they're modeling after you. So it's like we need both, and it's a relearning. So yeah, we need both. I think like, yeah, sometimes it's like we want the quick fix, we want the person to tell us, but we also have find someone telling us how to tune into us too, like what would work for us. Like, yes, give us a structure, what's going to work for us. And I mean, as humans, we have a general like I see patterns in my work, like I'm constantly seeing patterns, but everyone's a little bit different and it's a little bit nuanced, and it's learning that and understanding that about yourself. I don't know if that help understand, like, we want that structure. We need both.
Right. No, thank you. That was amazing. I don't know if you heard me. I was just like, wow, oh my gosh. Yeah, like because as you were saying those things, was like one of the words that kept popping in my head was fear. fear. Because I think once you're doing this type of work, you're really looking inside yourself and really asking yourself, what do I really want? What is really working for Alicia? What do I need in order to move forward? And really, what's been happening to me for so long with this emotional eating, just address it, as opposed to, you said, always looking to your parent or whoever. I don't know. Show me. It's like I do, but I'm afraid to really, you know, take my own advice, quote unquote, right? And just flow with it, because I've never had the opportunity. No one's really asked me. Like I'm still living. Like people, yeah, I'm pretty sure a lot of people think this way. I still think of myself as like a teenager until I see a teenager, and I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm old. Like it's
Uh,
I still feel that I'm still that little girl who's just like, can someone just tell me what to do? Like real talk. Like I make decisions, obviously. I mean, I'm 40, 44 now. I hope I'm making decisions. Let's be serious. But at the end of the day, truly who I am, this is me, full stop. I'd rather someone just tell me, so I don't have to then go within myself, because then it's like, if I have to, then it's like, should I do this? Should I that? And then it's like, it's this back and forth. And it's like, Alicia, you really don't know what you're talking about. Like, so it's like, you just tell me, so I don't have to have this internal struggle. Please and thank you. And it's like, I guess more, I didn't realize so many people thought that way. I'm mind blown right now.
well, I think it's also like the clearer you are and the more you do this work, you can choose people that are going to actually see you and guide you in the best way. So it's like you can put your trust in them and you're not like blindly like save me. Like you
Right.
can like in real time be like almost like working with them and they're like guiding you back to you. So it's like they're seeing you. They might, a lot of the times with clients, I'm seeing more than maybe they're seeing because they're still like in the survival mode. They still have that critical voice. They still are in that, they're sort of subscribed to that outside voice knowing better, or like, who am I? Like not fully getting in touch with their own internal guidance. And
Mhm.
so we sometimes need that tweaking, someone to kind of see, but we need to, the clearer we are, and what this is what I've noticed in my work, the better we're going to discern those people we can like take in that advice from.
Right.
We're going to choose better mentors or guides, or we're see like, yeah, that's gonna work for me, or I like that style better, or like, yes, what she's saying is making sense. It's gonna be like, yes, this is my next level. Like,
Right.
I'm being guided to this. This is my next evolutionary step, or whatever it is. So it all like circles in. So it's like, yes, I had mentorship too, like to do this deeper work, like I understood it, but I had, when I experienced it with my mentor, like part of me was like, yeah, I did it. I wouldn't have known to do those things.
Right.
It's almost like getting that reparenting that we wouldn't developmentally we needed. So it's like,
Right.
yes, to a degree we know, but we also depend on our parents. We have that relationship with them. We need to learn certain things too. So it's like having, yeah, it's an interesting place to like I as I say it, it's like we really do depend on our parents and we need that. And sometimes we don't get it. And can we, almost with whatever capacity we have, find those people that can help us like develop those skills too.
Wow. Yeah. And I mean, I will say that I have been blessed in my life to have a lot of people that I mentored me and guided me to where I am now. I mean, I think about just where I could have been, if I didn't have these people in my life. And I know that at the end of the day, I have like pretty good discernment about like with whatever. And I've always, and that's always been a part of me. There's
Mm-hmm.
still that inner child that's kind of like, someone just kind of like guide me, so it's like
Yeah.
there's still
No,
work.
no, yeah, yeah. I think I was like, as you're saying that, I was thinking specifically even for me, because I did so much inner work and it wasn't, and I was almost like doing this process, but like to learn from my mentor, like kind of click the pieces in together of how things
Right.
work. And I mean, with my son, I see it, like it's so obvious, like it
Right.
is, but it's just so interesting. I don't know. I just find it's like interesting. We're almost like guided because, like, yeah, if I was, I don't know how I ended up here. It's like we have natural gifts and like intelligence and talents, and some of those things can't ever be like squashed out, and they keep
Right.
guiding us. And we do have that capacity to the next step and to get there, but there's also like a blind spot too as well. And so like we're being led to the next mentor and we're learning, and maybe, you know, I don't know how, it's like we're kind of set ourselves up. Maybe we chose it or however it is, but we get to that step. And sometimes we're like, I wish I knew this before, but maybe you're meant to learn it to teach it or to
At that
guide
point.
all of that. Yeah.
Right. No, it's so funny. I was wondering because I was thinking when people come to this work, are they admit like how long does it take for them, or maybe it's initially that they're like, okay, my body is the gatekeeper to all of this, you know, all these different traumatic things that have happened in my life, which by way is why I am doing what I'm doing in terms of emotional eating or whatever that looks like. Is that something that's initially kind of like recognized by people, or is that something that happens along the journey? You know?
I think it's for the clients that I've had, it's like they might hear like, yeah, I've had trauma, but they're like, their main focus is like, I emotionally eat and I feel out of control. Like that's the main thing. The
Yeah.
obsessive thoughts, the like constant thoughts about body, about weight, about I feel out of control. Like this is taking over my life. And it's not like those dots start connecting as we work through the program, because I can see those dots sort of connecting. And as they move through the process, they start seeing the dots connecting. It's almost
Yeah.
like, you know, you have a little snowball and that's where it started and it's rolling down the hill. And now it's
Yeah.
like this giant out of control thing. And you're like, you can't not look at it.
Right.
And so you know, that's the spot clients are in, because now the emotional eating is this huge symptom. Like it's not the problem, it's a symptom of all the other things. And so now we go back and start unpeeling and looking at, you know, these different layers of like where it started.
Mhm.
So you start understanding your own pattern and seeing like, you know, a lot of the time my clients have had this for decades. It's not like yesterday. Sometimes it is, oh, I started the last few years, but they had a different addictive pattern. So they're dealing with a different way. And so they just kind of transfer and they never got to the root. And so it is really like kind of seeing it. And yeah, that's sort of like how it looks. It's like it's kind of on the surface. We're always looking at
Right.
the symptom, not it's like the iceberg. There's so much under the
Under
surface.
the surface, right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm assuming most people, I mean, I think everyone has had some type of traumatic event. I mean, we've all, unless you were like somewhere under a rock, we all dealt with COVID. You know what I'm saying? So, like, there's trauma done,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But in terms of like people who've had consistent trauma in their life, right? Like it's like one thing I know people like that. I mean, I've been in situations where at one point in my life I felt like, you know, I mean, what's next? Bring it on, because it seems like, you know, but for people who finally get to a point where they're just like coasting and not realizing that all these traumatic things that have happened in their life are affecting how they operate, how how do they get to a point where they acknowledge that a lot of the behaviors they have are by way of trauma? How does that then manifest for them to like really recognize it? Or is that something that just has to have, they have to come to terms with that? Because I feel like I know a lot of people who have a lot of traumatic things that have happened, but they don't bring it all together and say, oh, the reason why these things are happening to me is because I've been dealing with all these traumatic events in my life and I can't break free of it because I've not addressed it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think it's sort of like multifold in the sense that so when I work with clients, I look at their whole health history and like their relationship to food and big events in their lives. And I can kind of see like, okay, I see like a pattern. Like I can
Right.
kind of see there's a pattern. But say that to them, and then it might be like, no, I got over that. I went to therapy. I did this. Like, I'm fine.
Right.
And so the amazing thing with the somatic sessions is that you're going to get a different perspective of that story, because it's now we're not just talking about it. So this is the thing, talking and cognitive therapy is like a lot of awareness. That's a story. And I don't know the deeper roots and how that story was created. And then when we get into the body and we start actually getting into the deeper past the Like, what's the protection? What's the thing you created when this happened? What's not allowing to be like, what emotion is there? Like, what was missing? What's that deeper thing being held in? That's where we putting the pieces together, because it's almost like when I'm guiding clients, it could be a surface issue happening. And I'm like, we kind of go like, what's the time you felt that? Like, what's the most, we kind of keep going into like, you can start seeing the pattern in your life, the times you've felt that way. And there's always like, we try to get closest to the seed, the root of the first time, because that first time you felt that way, you're probably really young, because you weren't modeled how to move through this and how to deal with it. When you're like a 4-year-old, you decide, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z.
Right.
Does that serve a 44-year-old? Probably
Right.
not. But you won't recognize that until you get back to the root and you start looking at what did you actually need, because you're coping, your true needs weren't met. And so when we meet those true needs, it's a different outlook on life. Like, how have I been living life in the survival way? Because it's a survival response when you're that young. And how do I shift it so I'm in a thriving way? Like, if I had the parents and the needs and the allowance of like flow and emotions, how would I have dealt with this situation differently? And we have this whole spectrum of trauma. It could be big T to little t, but if we had the resolution, it doesn't have to keep re-traumatizing us. It's because we keep dealing with a similar situation in the same way, which is coping, that every time it happens, we're just coping and coping and coping. We're not resolving and having a solution and creating a new way forward and not empowering ourselves. So we're still in that loop. And so when the snowball gets really big, it's like we can't not look at it. But it's funny, when we go back to that root, it's almost like so simple what we needed. But it's just like, it's a snowball. It becomes out of control. And then we're afraid to look at it. We don't want to do it. We're avoiding, because that younger you would have been, you couldn't have felt it. If you're shamed or belittled or even ignored or just holding that, it's a painful, like, what are you going to do with it? And so we still have that fear. And it's not until it becomes so painful that we can like be like, we need help or whatever it is. And I don't even want to say it has become so painful, because I want people to recognize this so much sooner, because then there's just more, I don't want to say like cleanup. There might just be more things happening in your life. You look back and you're like, whoa. And I've been there too. Like, it's like, whoa, there was so much going on. And I wish I had the tools to like navigate. So yeah, so if you're seeing your emotional eating, like dive into it as soon as possible, because there's so much growth there and shifting from survival to thriving if you can get into the deeper root. I hope that makes sense.
No, that makes total sense. And as you were saying, it's like, oh gosh, I remember when you were saying, a lot of people that are dealing with a lot of emotional eating or just trauma in general, we are surviving and not thriving. And I love, because it's like so many of us were brought up in this idea of, if you're surviving and you're on the struggle and you're a part of the struggle, and that's going to get you to where you need to be. And it's like, no, if you stay in this mindset, you're just going to be struggling until it's time to piece out of this place. So it's like that idea of thriving. I love that. For me, I just feel this sense of like freedom. And I think more people are looking for that, just to feel free from all of this struggle. Like, we're constantly, it just like, this feels like it's like a constant spiral of just struggle, 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 as opposed to, rising above it, like recognize one struggle, but I don't have to live in that,
Yeah. Well, it's even, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. No, yeah.
I was just saying, as you're saying that, so survival and thriving, it's like, so our nervous system two main modes. I mean, there's another one too. We can be in fight or flight or rest and digest. And our body, when we're in survival, we're in fight or flight. And when we're in thriving, we're rest and digest. And so if you notice, even in a thriving mode, your body is in a state where it is digesting well, it's able to rest, it's going to be in its healthy. You're going to be clear, you're going to be calmer, you're going to be centered, you're going to make clear decisions. When you're in survival mode, and I think what our culture is, it's like that hustle and that survival. Like, I feel like you can be ambitious and you can have motivation, but you don't have to be like surviving and like gritting and gripping. Because there was this amazing meme. It's almost like a rowboat, and one is rowing left, and when it like you're on the same rowboat, and some people are rowing left and some people are rowing right. And that's what's happening. You're like stuck. And so we want all of you rowing in the same direction.
Right.
And so, where I'm sort of going with this is your nervous system, if you're clear and in that rest and digest, you're going to make that clearer decision. It's going to be more powerful. When you're in survival, it's like you're fighting yourself, you're fighting the world, you're in that rowboat going in two directions. It's going to be really hard to make forward movement. And so when you do the deeper work and you're not coping anymore, you're in a calmer state, you're going to have that clarity to make the next step that's so powerful. But when you're in survival mode, you're going to make a decision that's not going to be maybe the best. And then you're going to have to make it like you're constantly like it's not clear. There's more resistance. So that's how I sort of see it with being in survival mode. And I know like most of us, it's like survival, where our parents, it's just like, I need to like work. I need to do the thing because they weren't given the tools, and we're not taught this in our society, which might make us question why we're not taught this in our society, why we're shoved into survival mode and we're striving, and we're not taught this because as a human we're not meant to be in survival mode and stress mode 90% of the time. It's the opposite. So if you think back to evolutionarily, like we would be chased if we're like out hunting. Most of the time we're in a calm state. Like our nervous system, our body needs to be in a calm state. That's how we remain healthy. And so if like biologically that's where we're meant to be, our lifestyle should reflect that, and the way we deal with things should reflect that. But why is our society and our lifestyle reflecting the opposite? So that we're in survival mode, we're not making clear decisions, we're not moving forward, we're not thriving. So these are some to ask yourself, and where do you want to be? So it's taking your power back when you notice your coping mechanisms. Like, I'm going to take my power back. I'm going to go back and do this work that somehow it's not new. Like, it's not yesterday we learned about this. This is people are aware of this, but we have just kind of, society has gone in this way. Because when you're in survival mode, you're just like in the grind. You don't have ambition. You're not growing bigger. You're not like out there.
No, and then it's so true. It's just like, and I think for me, it's that unlearning, right? Because I thought this was the way to do things. And people that were more relaxed and calm and that take breaks and just some days don't do anything. In my mind, I always equated that as someone just lazy and not trying to do anything with their life. And it's like, okay, but Alicia, that's like one day, like calm down. And for myself too, it's like, give yourself that time to just do nothing. And I try, trust me, I try so hard to like not do nothing, but something will happen. And I'm like, oh my God, I need to go do this. And it's just like, why? Why do you have to do this right now? Why can't this day? But it's just a part of the fabric. And I'm still learning how to just relax.
Yeah. If we did deeper work in a somatic session, I would get in touch with that part of you that's like punishing you for resting. And we would have to almost like integrate them, like get them on the same page so that you could move forward and rest without feeling guilty. So it's an internal struggle you're going through. It's an internal tug of war because it's like two parts of you. So there might be like a part of you that's like authentically needs to rest. And then that parent voice comes in and says like, no, you're lazy. Like you just said it, you're lazy. You have no ambitions. Who are you? Blah. But like when you go deeper and you actually feel into your body, you're going to find where that sweet spot is for you, because you're going to get both parts of you on board. And that part that's really critical, giving it a new way of looking and almost like it's like when you have a relationship dispute, you want to get two people on the same page, you want to win-win. So it's like that internal resolution, but it's deeper in your body. It's your subconscious. When I work with clients, that's where we're getting to resolve some of the resistance as well. And sometimes it's resistance around feeling emotions, some resistance to like letting go or resting. Like you think if you're busy, you're more successful, you're more worthy, you have more value. Is that true?
Yeah.
So you would have to go deeper and figure out what is like the truth for you. And that's inside of you and at that deeper level. We're just talking right now, so it's not in that deeper level. So these are just things to ponder. It might filter down. But I'm
Right.
just telling you that's internally when we're like, when we're like this, inside of us, there's two opposing parts. It's that
Right.
rowboat not giving us a clear, straightforward. So we're going to be like,
Right. And that's, listen, trust me, I receive all this information and I'm grateful because I was just like, this is me. I am the rowboat. I'm just like, should we, oh no, back and forth, back and forth, so I appreciate that. So trust me, like I'm having a whole session here. Like,
yeah. And I mean, like, the way we move forward is like we need alignment.
Mhm.
Alignment is when to not two
Right.
directions. And so, how do we get us on board, both parts of us, to be in alignment with where, I don't know what you want to call it, your higher self, your soul, like your desire is wanting to go in. So one of those voices, like maybe your desire is to rest, but one of those voices is getting in the way, and it's not necessarily authentic to you because it's something maybe you inherited from your culture, upbringing, parents. And how do you look at that to see some value in it and make a decision, like internally? So this is literally like an internal conversation and working through different things. But the deeper voice, like what is your authentic voice? What is your authentic, like, and that's how it will give you that alignment to move forward. And it gives you so much more presence. So when your mind is left, it's very busy and there's no presence.
Right.
There's no
And that I'm glad that I'm sorry to cut you off, but I totally, like, that just hit me because that is me. I have to constantly like bring myself back to the present. Because even like if I'm in a situation, I'm like 20 steps ahead. I'm thinking about this, this, and this because I have to always be ahead of the game. I can't be in the moment because that means I'm behind. It's so wild that's that idea of just being present. It's fearful in a way because it's like I won't be ready. I will not be ready if I'm not thinking about that preparation.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah. So sometimes, with these like parts of us, it's like, there's nothing wrong with that, but if it's like giving you, it's like taking away from your life, then there's something to be looked at.
Right.
So it's like maybe this is like the part that's really prepared. And so, but it needs a healthier way to do that. So maybe you don't need to be 20 steps ahead. You need to be 3 steps ahead. And you need to kind of create like this new way and look at why it's unsafe to be present. Like what happens if you're just present?
Right.
Like what are you hiding an emotion? Are you hiding something that's uncomfortable? Like what is that deeper thing? Because that's the thing, sometimes, and this is not what I teach to clients, but like if you were to, those meditations where you sit and you're just like watching your thoughts and you're just coming back and watching your thoughts and you start ignoring your thoughts and you're like, I'm here. Well, those thoughts are a result of some like unresolved trauma. And so if we don't go into them, especially if they're repetitively thought, like you're obsessing with food and your body, we need to go use them because that's the story that's distracting us from the actual thing that's under the surface, that's in the body. And so that's how the mind tries to protect us. And so that's what I use it for with clients and for myself. And I don't need to sit there and try to be present. I am present because I resolve things. I'm clearing it out. I'm bringing resolution. And when you bring resolution, it's almost like what happens in life. It's like you're a picture and you break into puzzle pieces each time there's a trauma. And when you resolve it, you bring a new piece back. You become more whole. You put the puzzle back together. It's not that you're broken. So I think we think we're broken. We need to be fixed. No, you're like a puzzle and we're putting each piece back together. And so you become more whole. And there's presence in that because all the wholeness of you is on board. It's in alignment. When you have that argument, it's a piece of you that's still in resistance. So how do you bring that piece in and it's like coming back into the whole? And this is like the journey of wholeness. And it's like every time a piece comes up, that trigger or that conversation that's opposing, and we bring it in and we resolve it or do our best, like we're working on that, we become more whole because more, we're one entity now. We're becoming more and more clear and we go in a certain direction. Yeah.
That was like the best explanation ever. Like seriously, because I feel like a lot of times that's like the default for people. I'm broken.
Yeah.
So deal with it. Like this is
Yeah.
you know, as opposed to really trying to find ways to bring, like you said, bring all those pieces together, just and know that you're not broken. It's just your pieces are scattered. You just got to bring them
Yeah.
back together.
Yeah. And you have to fit, and it's like it has to fit in a certain place. So that fitting in is like that resolution. It's
Right.
that win-win. It's that integration.
I am like sitting here mind blown. Like seriously, like this is why I love talking to you because I always just feel like I'm learning more about myself. Like these are free. Thank you for my free session, Michelle. Thank you.
I haven't gotten to the root. I'm just talking on the surface. It would be very different if we did a session.
But I love that. So this then takes me into the whole session actual component. So when it, not that it's like step by step, you're going to tell us what, but what does that look like? Like even just like initial like sessions, like how does that actually look when someone is, you know, seeking services for you for the actual therapy with you?
Okay. So the sessions are part of my program, the Emotional Eating Evolution program. So it's a 12-week program. And in it, you get 12 weeks of support, but you get 2 of these private sessions. Like I was mentioning before, we need a structure to flow from. So it's not like, I know I'm emotional, like I know how to eat right. I know I'm working with you like step by step to like establish like a structure around how you're actually nourishing your body. So it's not the diet mentality, how to tune into like your body acceptance and getting closer to your body, because we're storing these emotions in our body and then into the actual emotions under it. So through the program, the reason we're doing this, we're nourishing your bodies to find those triggers. Because if we don't nourish ourselves well, that can also trigger us into binging just from the physiological level. So we're finding the trigger. And let's say you found the trigger in the program. We sort of talk a little bit about the trigger, and you might notice you might have some insights. And sometimes clients come in and they think like, I had this traumatic event and this, and they think this is the root. But when we actually go into the process, I first start off by really resourcing, like I guide you through resourcing your body, knowing resourcing means like your nervous system is in rest and digest. It's in a calm state. And in your calm state, you're your most clear and like, you know, compassionate, loving, like that's ideally what's happening versus survival state. And then in the body, I can access where are you holding that trigger or that unresolved event, and the body will like show me. And we start exploring that area, you know, what's it's all about. We start noticing the sensations, what emotions are there. And as we get into it, sometimes a story emerges or asks sometimes for an age. I ask different questions depending on the client, so that the questions are there to be with what's going on and to go back to the earliest time. And then we're really exploring what happened, what was needed, if there's space, if we need to move through an emotion, if we need to grieve, like what does that really look like? And I'm working with your body, so I can tell by your body what's being held, what protection is coming up, and sometimes there's like another layer. So we're really working with that situation. It's essentially to bring resolution to an event that happened, and also to really like see, hear, and understand you, and to almost like model that to you, like give that compassion, because the reason that is stuck is because it wasn't given. And that's sort of almost like an initial step, is sometimes we have like a protective layer, so we have to work through that. Sometimes there's a few parts, and then we resolve that, and there's a lot of like insight with it of what you needed. And it's almost like a light bulb usually goes off in clients' heads, like, oh, it's not about the food, it's not about my body, it's like I've been doing this to get this, but it's not about that. And when you actually give yourself what you needed on this like somatic emotional level, it's like, whoa, what have I been chasing?
Wow.
And so there's like an unraveling. And sometimes I walk clients through like a timeline of if they had through their life, how would their life shift? Like it just depends intuitively, like where they're at. Some clients need more to understand their inner child because they're not parents themselves. They kind of don't get the developmental or cognitive level of a child. They might have that strict parenting, like, you know, I shouldn't feel like that. It's like, no, developmentally, like I explained this in the session, depending on what level of understanding they're at, of like a child needs this And that opens them up a bit to like now give that to that younger part of themselves and to understand themselves. And so from that, it's like that allows an integration, because it's like the child is almost like a puzzle piece, a part of you, and now you bring it in, and whatever was like in that puzzle piece to the picture of you, like the essence of you. So maybe that child had like, you know, once we give it its needs, it also has like gifts and qualities you can add in, or even you just feel physiologically a state of calm in your body, of like joy or happiness. Like I've had clients say, I feel whole. Even they feel these sensations in their body, and it's like you just know it. It's like different for each person,
Right.
how you're going to integrate it. And then usually from there, apply it in real life. Now that, you know, we're not chasing the body or maybe the food, cover up. How do we deal with life in a powerful way? How do we actually healthfully move forward? So now it's not about the food. It might just drop off. You don't binge eat, because it's not about the binging. It was about like, I didn't feel loved and I was just stuffing it with the food, or, you know, whatever, or I didn't feel accepted. And so I'm like, I think I have to punish myself to have a certain body, because once I was told if I looked a certain way, yeah, I got to push myself at the gym because I need that body. But it's like, no, I really needed acceptance. And when I get that need met, me as me, I want to feel strong in my body. So I'm going to go to the gym and feel like at ease about it. I'm going to feel strong and powerful. And I'm like, I'm motivated. I'm like energized by that, not by, yeah, when I get that body, finally someone's going to accept me. I'm going to get, you know, deeper that acceptance or that love, or that it's not of a genuine being in the body. And that is punishing when we're chasing it. It's not about our body. It's about chasing something from someone else. But when we give it to ourselves, then it's like, oh, what does my body need? What is my body telling me I need? I have more energy now because I cleared that up. I actually want to go to the gym more. I want to be stronger. I feel good when I lift things. I feel good when I don't have, you know, I'm not tired at the end of the day. I love this. I know when I do a workout, I feel empowered. Like I love that feeling. It has nothing to do with anyone. It has, you know, and it can also be like, yeah, I want to have like really strong arms, or, you know, but there's a sense of feeling at ease in your body. It's a sense of, this is authentic to me. This is my healthy. This is who I am. When you have that, it doesn't matter. Like you exude that, and your body's going to shift to that direction. It's not a chasing. It's like an internal, like, I feel good. And that acceptance, you're developing it internally. And your body will probably most likely change because now you're giving it this appreciation and this acceptance. It's not in stress mode and survival mode. It's not going to have poor digestion and chronic stress, which impacts our body physically. Inflammatory conditions like disease, like issues, weight gain. We're now shifting our nervous system to actually a place where our body's going to probably get closer to what we're chasing, but we don't need that anymore. So don't use that as a motivation. I don't like to share that, because then the motivation has to be true. Like it has to be a true sense, because then you're still in that little bit of like, you know, and then you can use your body as a tool. So when things are imbalanced, what's the deeper emotional thing happening? What's the deeper thing happening to me that I'm stressed and maybe gaining weight, or having like an inflammatory condition, or having this ache or this pain? It's something deeper that our body's holding on to. So that's sort of like, it can go deeper into that. Yeah.
No, that is amazing, first of all. And thank you for explaining that, because for me, think, like you said, you're realizing that a lot of this is just you either need some type of acceptance or approval from someone. And I know that's a lot of what was going on with me, and what is going on with me is that needing that, just to feel approval from whatever or whoever. And I think that might be a lot of what a lot of people are they're just looking for, that like, you accept me, this whole person, and it's okay.
Yeah. Well, the thing is like, as children, our basic needs, I mean, it will be nuanced for each person, but we need to be seen, heard, validated, accepted, understood, like that full acceptance. and that approval from our parents. And if we don't get it, it's a need. We're searching for it, and we'll put other things on top of it, hoping that we'll finally get that. It's really basic. And when you start doing that for yourself, it's like, yeah, it's a bonus to have a healthy body. It's a bonus it becomes a bonus.
Right.
Our society still is mostly in this survival state. As you said, we are all wounded and looking for this approval, whether it's in food or scrolling or surgery, whatever it is. When it's not from an aligned place, there's deeper need of not feeling accepted and loved and validated and heard and seen. And we all have that. And it's just to recognize when it's coming up, how we're covering it up, and we're not actually getting into meeting those needs for ourselves, those deeper needs. But we need, now that it's been so long, this is why we need these processes.
Right.
Well, if our parents modeled this for us, we wouldn't be here talking about it. It's like my life would be like in my alignment. I'd be doing probably similar things, in my essence, but it would be a different journey to get there. Because we're still integrating, like, who am I authentically and where's that leading me? Yeah.
Now oh my gosh, Michelle, I could talk to you literally all day long, because there's always something, like, seriously, like, just amazing information, and it's presented in such a way that you can digest it. Does that make sense? Because sometimes you hear information and it's just, what'd you say?
I hope so.
No, seriously, because sometimes people share information and it's so intense, and you just can't even process it. It's just like, whoa, whoa, whoa. But when you share it, even though it's a lot of information and it's kind of like punch you in the face type of info, you can still like take it in and be like, wow, yes, I do that. Or yes, I do need to make these types of changes. So your gift is just, seriously, it's beyond amazing. And no, I'm grateful that you're in the world, because like, this is like unreal. Seriously.
Thank you. Inner work, validation, acceptance.
Yes, receive it, please, because every time I talk to you, I just feel so good. I'm like, oh my gosh, Alicia, another step forward in this journey. Thank you, Michelle Lall. Like,
yeah, amazing.
Well, I could talk to you all day, but I don't want to keep you. I know there's so many things you have to do, but if you could share with everyone again where they can find you, on social media, or wherever you are, so they can do this amazing work and work with you.
So you can find me on Instagram at Lall Nutrition, or you can go to my website, lallnutrition.com. I don't know if Alicia, if you add any links here. I also have a free guide called What Are You Truly Hungry For? And so that guide will help you discern between true and emotional hunger and give you a few journaling prompts to start off with. So if you want, you can add that link. It's a free resource to sort of get you started on this journey. So it's step by step, so it's not overwhelming. So I think, basically on Instagram and my website are really great. Even the link in bio on my Instagram. There's other resources there. And I also do like a free masterclass. I've been doing it every week, where we can dive deeper if, you want to sort of see the overview of how this pattern really plays out. And that's also another free resource.
Awesome. Yeah, I share all that in the show notes, y'all. So it will definitely be there. Oh my gosh, Michelle, thank you so much for coming back on the podcast. It's always a treat to have your energy, and it's just amazing information. So like, this is a blessing. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I hope this was helpful and gave you some ahas, and just sort of see the deeper roots of this pattern and feel empowered to move forward.
I listen, I can only speak for myself. It definitely gave me all the ahas, and I just have to seriously, and I have to just keep moving forward. This was amazing. So thank you so much.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Anytime. Like, seriously, like it could be the Michelle Lall show at this point.
I would love to come on again. Let me know whatever else we could discuss. I'd love around emotional eating.
Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, such a blessing. Y'all, thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of the Eating Me podcast. I will see y'all next week. Thank you so much again, Michelle. This was